And I'm Aisha Sasay. This is Newsroom LA. We are following several big stories for you this hour, starting with a temporary restraining order issued against President Trump's travel ban on several mostly Muslim countries.
And the crucial election in the Netherlands, seen as a bellwether of far-right politics in Europe. Dutch voters appear to have rejected the anti-immigrant message of Geert Wilders. We'll have more on that later this hour, but now we will start with the travel ban.
Yeah, well, Wednesday's ruling by a federal judge in Hawaii is another major setback for U.S. President Donald Trump. The new travel ban was knocked down just hours before it was due to take effect.
Mr. Trump had revised his original executive order from January, which had caused havoc at U.S. airports and was ultimately struck down. He told supporters in Tennessee he would appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court if he had to.
Hundreds of refugees are under federal investigation for terrorism and related reasons. We have entire regions of the world destabilized by terrorism and ISIS. For this reason, I issued an executive order to temporarily suspend immigration from places where it cannot safely occur. And let me tell you something, I think we ought to go back to the first one and go all the way, which is what I wanted to do in the first place.
Well, an attorney with the American Civil Liberties Union said this about the judge's ruling. The Constitution has once again put the brakes on President Trump's disgraceful and discriminatory ban. We are pleased but not surprised by this latest development and will continue working to ensure the Muslim ban never takes effect. Well, our own Stephanie Elam is covering the judge's ruling in Honolulu, Hawaii. Also with us here in Los Angeles, civil rights attorney Brian Claypool and CNN legal analyst Ariva Martin. Stephanie, let's start with you. Help our viewers understand why Hawaii's Attorney General felt compelled to take this stand.
Well, Aisha, there's multiple reasons, and it's interesting when you talk to the attorney generals, and there are a few actually in Honolulu right now representing different states, but the fact that they're saying if you attack this problem as they saw it, from multiple states, then you can actually find a resolution perhaps in one place that you might not find in the other. But one of the other things that came up, and I asked the Attorney General for Hawaii this question, Doug Chin, I asked him, why not join in with the other lawsuit that was in Washington State, which other states did join? And he told me that he felt that this ban, this travel ban here in Hawaii specifically went counter to the culture here. It went against that aloha spirit and that sense of welcoming and working with people here as they would like to do. They were also very concerned that their universities and institutions would be directly impacted, as right now the universities are in the process of accepting candidates, and obviously they'd have to get their visas and then pay their tuition, and all of that would affect them. So they were saying that that was something that needed to be handled right now. And then also this other point that is worth noting here, which has been mentioned in context from the Attorney General and from others, is the fact that here in Hawaii there is a large population of people of Japanese descent. And in light of World War II and the internment camps, the idea of doing something similar to that, which they felt the travel ban would do, did not sit well with the population here. And so they felt that this was something that needed to be addressed. And this federal judge here ruling that there was a need for this temporary restraining order blocking those key provisions within this executive order, saying that this was just against what would happen, what should happen here in the country, based on the fact that it took a look at where people were from and it looked at their faith. Even if it was watered down, as the president said, it was still the same intent of the first executive order.
Stephanie, we appreciate it. Do stand by for us. We want to bring in our guests here in the studio.
Yeah, let's take a close look at the legal reasons behind all of this, also the implications. So, Brian, first this travel ban 2.0, this was the slimmed down, cleaned up, meant to be court-proof version of the executive order that Donald Trump issued back in January. All of those changes which the administration made, at least according to Judge Watson in Hawaii, were futile.
Well, I was stunned by this judge's ruling, and in fact, I believe this ruling was politically motivated. I think this was an ambush on President Trump. I'll tell you why. President Obama had identified these same 6 countries when he was in office as being on the hotbed list for domestic terrorism. So now President Trump identifies those. And I was on your show about 6 weeks ago, and I was critical of that first by the way, it's not a travel ban either. Yeah. It's a temporary travel restriction to allow proper vetting. But I was on your show 6 weeks ago. I was very critical of that first travel restriction because I did believe that that was creating a law that unduly favored one religion over another. But here, I disagree. I believe that it was shored up, and this was facially constitutional. And you had waivers in this executive order too, to allow folks who are immigrants, who are refugees, who might not even have a visa or a green card, to obtain a waiver to come into the United States. And that is unconstitutional?
Let me ask Riva to weigh in and respond to that. I mean, you heard what Brian said. The administration tried that line to kind of tie this to past thinking on the part of the Obama administration. That just didn't wash.
No, the federal court judge in Hawaii, a stinging rebuke of this second travel ban, which I think many of us believe it absolutely is a travel ban. And the court rejected the Trump government argument that this ban was needed to protect the country from terrorists coming into the United States. In fact, the court focused on the Department of Homeland Security's report, which said that the country was not at risk from suffering any kind of terrorist attack because of individuals coming from any of the countries that are identified in the ban. And let me just talk one thing about the timing of the new travel ban. The court also said, if this is so urgent, why the delay? Why the constant delay from the Trump administration? And we heard one delay was to allow the president to bask in the glory of his speech that he gave to Congress. Doesn't suggest a real urgency.
Okay, hold that thought, Brian, because another aspect of this decision by the Hawaii court, the judge took into consideration past statements made not only by the president, but also those around the president, his surrogates. The decision specifically referenced an interview Donald Trump did with CNN last year when he said this.
Do you think Islam is at war with the West?
I think Islam hates us. There's something there that there's a tremendous hatred there. There's a tremendous hatred. We have to get to the bottom of it. There is an unbelievable hatred of us.
In Islam itself?
You're going to have to figure that out.
Okay, so Brian, so it seems that this judge considered not just content of the executive order, but also motive.
Well, a couple things. First of all, how is this a Muslim ban when there are 90 million plus other Muslims in 40 plus other countries who are not on this travel ban list? That's my first point. So I don't believe this is a Muslim ban because of that. And this judge, by the way, his opinion was very personal. He said something to the effect that the government's position on this is palpable, or their logic was palpable. That's personal. That's the first point I want to make.
There's a lack of logic.
Yeah, the lack of logic, right. It was the lack of logic.
It's actually the illogic of the government.
The illogic of the, thank you. We got it the third time's the charm.
We had the quote. Let's look at it. Here it is. The illogic of the government's contentions is palpable. The notion that one can demonstrate animus towards any group of people only by targeting all of them at once is fundamentally flawed. Went on to say equally flawed is the notion that the executive order cannot be found to have targeted Islam because it applies to all individuals in the 6 referenced countries.
John, one other point. This judge should clearly have not considered comments made by President Trump during the election process, because that could have a chilling effect and could create a global gag order for any person who wants to run for public office. He or she then is going to zip their mouth shut, because anything they say now can be used against them when they try to craft legislation.
That's just false, Brian. The reality is there's a 2005 Supreme Court case that says that the court should look at the context in which policy is made. And it wasn't just the interview, John, that you just showed. It was also the surrogates, Rudy Giuliani, Stephen Miller,
yeah,
who came on television and said that Trump wanted to design, create a travel ban that restricted Muslims on the basis of their religion, and asked Giuliani, how do I do it? The reality is Trump is his own worst enemy, whether it's his tweets or his own words. Those are the things that are haunting him in this order. The judge says unrefuted evidence that your intent is not to protect the country, but to discriminate against individuals on the basis of their religion, and that is unconstitutional.
Why is she wrong, Brian?
She's wrong because the 6 countries that are on this travel
30
restriction.
seconds.
The 6 countries that are on this travel restriction list are the predominant countries that have the most potential for domestic terrorism. Trump has isolated to those 6 countries. He hasn't just magically created these list of countries.
This conversation will go
Trump
on.
says we'll see you in court, and we already know the 9th Circuit has rejected his travel ban, so let's go to court.
Okay, he's 2 for 0.
You'll be
Brian
going to
and Aretha,
court.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next here on Newsroom LA, a federal judge